Welcome to this session. I am the moderator for the session, and maybe some of you will wonder what the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs is doing in moderating this session. I have to say I had the fortune to work for the last 3 years in UNFPA on secondment from the office I have just returned to now. Helping manage the development of the UNFPA population data platform, and that it is in that context that I was invited to moderate today's session, and I'm very happy to do so, given all the work we have been investing in the last few years in the development of this population data platform. You know the topic of the session. I would only add that what our interest is, I think, as organizers and that of UNFPA as the sponsor of the conference and of this session, is to hear your feedback, the suggestions you as both speakers and attendees would have based on what you see today in this session, and it will hopefully help also guide the development of new resources, including the UNFPA population data platform that we are hoping to see launched in the next weeks or months. So with that in mind, I wanted to thank first of all the speakers who agreed to participate and to share their experience, their knowledge, their work with us today. I will introduce them one by one, and also I appreciate the acceptance, the two discussants that accepted to be with us today, John Wilmot from the UN Population Division at UNDESA, and Alexander Caldas from UN Environment. They will have a chance to share with us their thoughts on the presentations at the end. We will go one by one, listening to the presentations as given by the speakers or as recorded. And then hopefully we will have about 30 minutes at the end to open up the floor for questions, suggestions. Feel free to use the chat as participants in the session to post your questions as you listen to a presentation. If you need to do that, we will make sure we go through those questions at the end, and we will try to address each of those. So the chat will be open for all the participants if they wish to use it while we go through the presentations. I would like to get started then with the first speaker, and that is George Alter from the University of Michigan. We will hear his recorded presentation. Thank you.
Hello, my name is George Alter, and I will be talking about the Fair Vocabularies Working Group. This presentation is a little different from the others in this session because it is about an emerging set of standards and technologies. IUSSP and CODATA formed this working group to assure that demographic data are part of a rapidly growing movement to change the way that data are provided and used. Our goal is to make demographic data easier to combine with other types of data by creating fair vocabularies. The working group includes more than 20 demographers, statisticians, and data specialists around the world. FAIR stands for Findable, Accessible, Interoperable, and Reusable. FAIR is a set of principles supported by leading international organizations like CODATA that promote greater access and use of research data. FAIR means that data should be easy to find, that requirements for access to data should be clearly stated, that it should be easy to integrate data from different sources, and that barriers to reuse of data should be removed. FAIR is about making data easier for machines to use. Anyone who has combined data from different sources knows how time-consuming that can be. Data scientists call this data wrangling. If we want to automate the process of integrating data sets, we need to have machine actionable metadata. Metadata is data about data. It is the metadata that tells us whether two variables with the same name actually mean the same thing. You may think about metadata as a codebook, but machines cannot read PDF codebooks. Fair metadata is in machine-readable formats. In particular, fair metadata uses persistent identifiers to describe variables and coding systems. Persistent identifiers are related to URLs, and they point to a landing page on the internet. Landing pages in fair vocabularies define terms in ways that both humans and machines can read. Fair vocabularies provide the information needed to make data fair. How do we know when two data sets are measuring the same thing? If both variables have the same persistent identifier, a machine knows that they are the same. Fair vocabularies describe concepts, variables, and the categories used to encode variables. Demography already uses many control vocabularies, like the International Classification of Diseases. Fair vocabularies are online sources with persistent identifiers. Fair vocabularies also use standard tools to describe relationships between concepts and variables. So a fair vocabulary can tell a machine that the TFR is a measure of the concept fertility. How will this work? Suppose that you want to know the population aged 18 to 24 in as many places as possible. You will use a computer program to search for this information. First, you will consult an online thesaurus to find persistent identifiers for population and age. Next, you will search for data cross-classified by those identifiers. Then you must find which of those data sets include ages 18 to 24. This involves checking for age categories that can be aggregated to 18 to 24. For example, you will reject data sets that lump together ages 15 to 19. When all of the infrastructure is in place, this kind of search should take seconds. And there will be software to merge all of these data sets into a single file for your analysis. If you do it today, you will spend hours downloading and reading codebooks. Fair vocabularies are starting to be applied to demographic data. The most advanced area is national and international statistics. The UN, OECD, ILO, and other international agencies collect data from many national statistical organizations. This has resulted in the SDMX standard for the exchange of data. The SDMX Global Registry provides persistent identifiers for variables and code lists for the UN and other statistical agencies. Other providers of demographic data have devoted much less attention to interoperability. Repositories for the social sciences, like ICPSR, Dataverse, and a number of European data archives, produce metadata in a machine-readable format called DDI, but they rarely receive metadata that include persistent identifiers. An important first step is the European language social science thesaurus, which is produced by the Consortium of European Social Science Data Archives. But we have a long way to go. One of the areas of concern for the working group is the representation of demographic concepts and measures in existing online vocabularies. We can illustrate the problem with the concepts of fertility and fecundity. The English language meanings of fertility and fecundity were established in the 1930s. Fertility refers to measurable reproductive performance. Fecundity refers to potential reproduction. These are the definitions found in Demopedia, IUSSP's online thesaurus of demographic terms. However, the biomedical community uses the same terms in the opposite way. I consulted 16 online vocabularies, and most of them used the biomedical definitions. Wikipedia actually illustrates the problem. Wikipedia has received enough complaints that they have posted a plea for help. In short, if the population research community wants to take advantage of the possibilities of fair data, we will need to make sure that our definitions and concepts are represented in FAIR vocabularies. The FAIR Vocabularies Working Group will be writing a report to IOSSP and CODATA explaining the importance of creating FAIR vocabularies and proposing ways to use these tools to advance demographic research. Thank you.
Thank you very much, George. All very important points, I think, in the work we do, and thanks for that very good introduction, maybe to the other presentations and the discussion we will have. Maybe just to repeat for those of you who joined a bit later, because I see the participant list is now growing. We are going through the presentations currently one by one, and the chat is open for the participants. You cannot turn on your videos and microphones until we get into the discussions, but the chat is open. So if you have any questions to any of the presenters, please feel free to post them in the chat window, and we will address them at the end when we will have the discussion. With that, we are moving to the next presenter on our list, David Kerr from WorldPop, from the WorldPop group at the University of Southampton, UK. This will be also a recorded presentation. The speakers are also, of course, in the call today, and they will be happy to answer your questions live at the end. So David Kerr next. Thank you.
Hello everyone, thank you for joining this talk on population data platform. My name is David Kerr, and I'm a GIS application developer with the WorldPop SDI at the University of Southampton in the UK. Today I'll be talking about some work we've been doing to disseminate WorldPop's data, and I'll also present some collaboration we have done with Charlie Fry, a colleague at Esri, who is also helping us to disseminate our data. Many of you will no doubt have come across WorldPop or our data in your work. Those who don't know who we are, we're a population research group based at the University of Southampton. Our primary aim is to improve the spatial demographic evidence base for low and middle income countries. We're comprised of about 50 people, mainly researchers, but also technical staff, project management and administrative staff, and also PhD research students, as well as the partners that you see below here. We also work with governments and non-governmental agencies to corroborate our outputs. The WorldPop spatial data infrastructure provides access to about 45,000 datasets held on the WorldPop open access repository. This includes population and demographic disaggregations, birth and pregnancy rates, subnational administrative boundaries, as well as the covariates that are used to inform our data sets. Many of the data sets are at a global extent, covering 250 countries and territories around the world. And for the most part, they're at a resolution of 100 meters. This schematic shows the structure of the WorldPop SDI. Many of our data sets are computed on the university's HPC cluster, and those outputs are then stored on the WorldPop storage drive, which has a capacity of about 150 terabytes. Access is then given to these data sets through an FTP protocol, through our website, and through a few portals that we've developed. We also provide some OGC map layers through a GeoServer instance, as well as some GIS plugins that can access the data. In terms of web portals, we provide a couple of beginner-friendly websites that enable non-GIS users to access WorldPop data. In the WorldPop demographic portal, users are able to visualize age and sex breakdowns in over 26,000 administrative units globally for the years 2000 to 2020. They're also able to plot population pyramids and also see temporal trends in age and sex groups over those 21 years relative to administrative boundaries or administrative units, total populations. The WapaVision application allows users to define areas on a map and their returned population estimates for these areas, along with uncertainties for demographic groups that are selected by the user. Over the last year or so, we've been working with Google Earth Engine, who have published a number of our data sets on their repository. They are currently holding three-dimensional data cubes on their Earth Engine platform, which can be found by searching on their catalog page. Just searching WorldPop on the catalog page, you should be able to find these three data sets. The three data sets are all at a resolution of 100 meters and have a global extent covering around 250 countries and territories. The three data sets are total population from 2000 to 2020, and then 36 age and sex demographic groups for 2020 alone, and the same demographic groups only constrained to urban extents and adjusted to the UN population estimates. Over the last couple of years, we've been working with Esri and have started to host some data and develop applications using their ArcGIS enterprise stack. Also, in the last couple of days, our colleague Charlie Fry from Esri has also published 3 multi-dimensional data sets on ArcGIS Living Atlas of the world. For those who don't know, the Living Atlas is a collection of authoritative data sets and applications that can be used alone or in conjunction with other Esri products. These 3 data sets that Esri have hosted for us are in Esri Cloud format, which is a new technology and speeds up data access and analysis compared to regular GeoTIFF format. They're currently at 1 kilometer resolution, but we hope to expand these to include 100-meter data sets in future. So the 3 data cubes that they have, that they're storing for us, are total population, so it's 21 slices between 2000 to 2020, population cohorts, which is 38 age and sex groups for each year between 2000 and 2020, which comes to about 800 data slices, and finally population density over the 21 years in that period. So the advantage of these Esri raster formats, cloud raster format, is the speed of access and analysis. You can add these services into your ArcGIS projects within a matter of seconds, which is compared to a few hours of download time from a conventional GeoTIFF. So in this example, I show you how to access these layers in your ArcGIS Pro project. If you click the Add Data button and then select Living Atlas as the source of data, and in the search box, if you search for WorldPop, you should be able to see the data sets that are available in the repository, and then add these to your project, which should take a few seconds, and you will then have access to all of the data layers within this data set. So here I've added the 21 years total population, and if you select the multi-dimensional tab, you can see which data sets are available, and you can select individual data sets to analyze or extract. So an interesting analysis that can be carried out that is very fast on this data service is that of temporal profiling. So again, in the multi-dimensional tab in ArcGIS Pro, if you select the temporal profile, a charting tool will open, which will allow you to compare data sets over time or between areas. So in the time series section, I've selected multiple locations with one data slice. So one layer within this cube. You can also change this to multiple layers with one location as well. In the define area of interest, there's a selection of geometries you can use to add to the map. So there's a point, line, range of polygons, and polygons from within a shapefile as well, if you like. So in this example, I've added two circles, and I would like to analyze how their populations of the respective areas have changed over time. And as soon as these areas have been drawn onto the map, pretty much instantaneously, the graph is plotted in the project, and you can compare how these two different regions have changed over time. Some other platforms that allow access to WorldPop data is the WorldPop REST API, which allows programmers to query layers held in the WorldPop repository using any programming language. We also have the WorldPop portal, which allows users to define areas on a map in which to calculate age and sex makeups, and then download an extraction of that area to their local PC. And then finally, we have a few QGIS and ArcGIS plugins, which will also allow users to access data on our repository. So thank you for taking the time to listen to this high-level introduction to WorldPop data platforms. If there's anything not clear in this description, please keep an eye out on our Twitter feed for blogs that may be published explaining how to access these data further. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the talks.
Thank you very much. I'm personally very happy to see this finally online, as you know, and I think UNFPA will be making full use of the resource in its upcoming population data platform as well. This is all about sharing these data resources without necessarily, as David mentioned in his presentation, having to always download and reprocess and store the data locally on your computer. So this is a great resource for sure. Thank you. As I mentioned in the beginning, I believe that the next presenter could not make it unless the representative from UNECA has meanwhile joined the call and is ready to present live, but I don't see that. We are skipping the third presentation from UNECA. That was about the Africa UN Data for Development platform. Hopefully We can maybe share the resource or a presentation later with the participants. We just learned yesterday that they could not make it. And we are then moving to the fourth presenter in today's session, Rolando Ocampo from the Economic Commission for Latin America, speaking to us from Chile, I think. And Rolando, the floor is yours. You will have a live presentation to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Good day to all of you. Let me share my screen. I don't know if you see my.
Yes, we can see it well.
Okay, let me move to the. Now you can see it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. What I'm going to present, and thank you for the invitation to be here. I'm Rolando Campo from the ECLAC, Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. And we wanted to present this, our new interface of our statistical and geographical portal that we call it CEPALStat. What is the CEPALStat? Well, the CEPALStat is the statistical database and the publication that we have, and where we have all the information from the countries in the Latin America and the Caribbean and 14 associated states in our region. And the contents have statistics and periodic indicators, regional and national profiles, statistical publications, international methodological recommendation, and some other international classification for statistical production. The structure of the information that comes from some pillars of development. The one is demographic and social. The other one is environmental and the other one economic, and the other multi-domain, where we have the Sustainable Development Goals, gender, cities, and other ones. So the source of information is, we take the information for the official national and international sources, and we use the microdata for the household surveys of population, and we include some information from population censuses. How is the online dissemination of statistical data? How has it evolved in our in ECLAC? Well, the first step that we give it in 2006, when we create a system of integrated databases that we call it CEPALStat, and we began to walk into the to create a statistical portal that we launched it in 2013. So we incorporate, we define a gender observatory in 2009, and through 2013 to 2021. So we aggregate additional aspects. For example, the digital report library, the repository. We incorporate national and regional thematic statistical profiles. We incorporate the SDMX, and now we are working with the new version, and we are taking some capacitation to incorporate the new version of the SDMX. And in 2019 and 2018, we incorporated the Social Spending Observatory. In 2019, we launched our SDG Gateway, where it incorporates all the information from the Sustainable Development Goals, indicators, and all the information from the statistical side, and including all the information that the funds, agencies, and programs has regarding to the Sustainable Development Goals. In 2020, we create a COVID-19 geoportal for the following of the COVID-19 observatory, and we launched our statistical yearbook web. And at the end, in 2021, just in October, we launched the new platform of the geoportal CEPALStat. And what does it contain? This new portal? Well, It incorporates better browsing experience and easier access to statistical information, new content and functionalities, the diversification of products to serve users, more users to higher demands, integration of international database, integration of statistical and geospatial information. And that's why we incorporate a geoportal to mix all the geographical layers and all the data that come from our region. And all these four comes with the principles of the United Nations Data Strategy, that once that launched for the reform, our Secretary General, that has to be with open source, open data, information to be interoperable and integrated, and to be comparable and to be seen in the territory. Let's see some elements. The first one, so this is a new section of our web page. This Cepalestat, a new section where we have news. In addition, we have our data bank where we have the access to the development pillars, cross-cutting terms, and in addition, we have all the access to advanced uses through app to APIs, where you can download all this information through these APIs. And we incorporate, as I mentioned you, the new geoportal to view information on maps and add geographical layers. And we have another section for the statistical information for the sustainable development and goals. We have a synthetic statistical profiles for regional profiles and country profiles in this, and for demographic and social, economic, environmental, energy, and gender. And of course, we have our statistical yearbooks in these cards. And we have access to another information that is produced, that they are produced here in ECLAC, the access of the MIT for the data for population and housing censuses, and some other ones. Of course, we have a regional monitoring mechanism led by ECLAC. So all the mechanisms that we have in our region, and so we have external information resources databases from about 100 statistical databases that coming from international organizations. So let's navigate into this portal. Let's see some demographic. Let's get into the demographic and social information. Here you can see this portal, a new presentation. For example, this item, demographic and dependency ratio, and you can see the slide, but even you can identify if you want to select countries, sex, it's only for men or woman, or years of the series that we have, and all the information. You can identify what do you want, and then you can see the slide, and you can download here in this area. You can download the slide, and you can put it for example, you're writing a document or whatever, you can download this slide and put it in a Word, in your Word, for do the confirmation. And in addition, you have all the information that comes from this series. So the definition, countries, years that we have for the information, sex, age. So all the information we have there, and so you can see in this regard. But let me move to another aspect. So where let's see another series, the average size of household. So you can download the information, you can see the series and identify the data for each year. And in addition, you can go to the database and you can download this information, select the information that you want, but you can download in open source, open data, XLS or JSON or XML. So all the information, then you can take them and you can produce all the information that and you can run programs in Stata, Air, or whatever, SPSS, whatever. Let me continue, because you can, this graph, you can see it in a geoportal, and you can identify the information and see the comparison in a map, all this information. But in addition, you can change the dimensions of this your portal. It's like if you can do it in a graph, you can do it in a map. So, and you can identify this information. For example, for this graph has the information comes from quantiles and the years, and if you can rural or urban or whatever. But in addition, you can add or change indicators. And in this regard, we are seeing now the migration rate in all the region, but you can incorporate another geographical data. For example, we can identify all the conflicts armed in the region. You can see battles, explosion, remote violence, protests, riots, strategic developments, and you can see the two layers in front, in the back. You can see the migration rate, and in here you can see all the information that we extract from other sources that are open. And even you can compare layers. If you want to see, you can identify the two layers and see and move from one other in this presentation. Let's see another one, percentage of migrant population, but we can go in this layer, and so we have information at the subnational level in terms of this is our human settlements that we obtained. In addition, percentage of adolescents who are mothers, we can identify in this subnational layers. This is another information that we obtained from the data from the countries, and what we are doing here in ECLAC, we are putting it in a visualization, in a regional visualization for all the countries. So of course, all this information we are aligned with the guidelines coming from the Statistical Commission and UNGIM, the Global Geospatial Information Management, this group of experts that in particular the Statistical and Geospatial Framework, the Global Statistical and Geospatial Framework, and the Integration Geospatial Information Framework, that we have all the information aligned. This geoportal is aligned with these two mandatory guidelines that come from the global perspective. So here you can see regional and profiles and the country profiles that I mentioned you. So for example, for Latin America, you have demographic, health, employment, poverty, housing at the regional level in this aspect. But you can see another access to microdata to the population of houses, and you can select the census that you have, and you can produce all your graph in this area. Of course, this is Redatam web service, so we incorporate in the platform of Cepalestat because it's the information of all ECLAC that are in a single platform. So you can identify, and if you use Redatam, you know that you can use and select the graph and the information in the tables that you want. In addition, we have access to the relevant methods and classification by subject area, and we have the integration of the methodological documentation from ECLAC that is in our bibliographic repository. So you can identify, you can make a click, and you can see the information that is coming in from other areas. And of course, you can access to the statistical publication of ECLAC in this regard from demographics, social panorama for Latin America, economic survey, and international trade outlook, and some other aspects. This is another aspect that we wanted to show, that you can see and obtain and use all the APIs that we develop for this platform, this global, this international platform that we are using as I mentioned you, with open data and open information. In conclusion, so we have more than 100,000 indicators, more than 6.5 unique records, more than 6,000 different nodes, 4,000 different sources of information, 223,000 disaggregations, and 200 topics and subtopics, and that we have in this information. And we have more than 600,000 monthly transactions. What we are planning to do in the next is continue with the update with the new technologies, this CEPAL-STAT, incorporating big data in terms of, for example, for the satellite images that we can share and we can incorporate in our geoportal, and to use all these, the international agencies use the APIs that the international APIs has, and to move to this federated system that UNSD is working on, and try to support countries and member states to empower it for greater data information. This is my presentation. You can see, and you can go to our CEPAL-STAT in this link. But this is for this. This is my end. And let's, Lauren, and over to you. Thank you very much for.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rolando. You're certainly a strong champion for demographic and statistical data dissemination regionally. So a lot to learn from your work. You also mentioned the data strategy of the Secretary General, and as one of those 25-year-old UN staff members, I would say I'm happy. It's about time we have a system-wide strategy. Key is the implementation and really working together. There's a lot to gain. So I'm glad you mentioned that also in your presentation. Next, our fifth speaker today is Mengjia Liang from UNFPA. Mengjia, over to you. Live record. I think it's a recorded presentation, right? Yeah, thank you.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you so much for having me at this excellent panel. My name is Mengjia Liang. Today, I'm going to talk about the UNFPA Population Data Platform. So the Population Data Platform is a new online corporate resource that offers great potential for better identifying those left behind, targeting the optimal location for needed interventions in EFPA's mandated domains of work, and tracking impact on EFPA's 3 transformative results. It is home for EFPA's core population data sets, a host or conduit for eventual national census data disseminations by various member states, and offers high-resolution mapping of population and the development indicators, making them accessible to UNFPA users, member states, and the general public. So what does the PDP look like? On the home page, you may map up to 3 development indicators on top of a base map layer, such as the population density. We have a powerful search engine that allows you to query data by searching indicator keywords, national and subnational areas, or data sources. We also have a robust filter panel that allows you to further refine your search results by selecting several indicators for multiple countries or subnational areas, selecting a single year or year range, and specifying the data sources and data disaggregations you want to see. And of course, we have easy access to the interactive thematic dashboards, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. So let me take a step back to show you the full population data platform workflow. So I'd like to draw your attention to the middle layer here. Look at the middle panel where it says processing. So what that images of the many layers is hugely important to understand what we aim to achieve here. So we have the population base layer. We have the estimated population for countries that don't have censuses. We have other spatial outputs, and then we have indicator data that are core to our mandate, including the SDG indicators. So what's really unique and really important about our population data platform is our efforts to integrate different sources of data, different types of data, and to have location data and we let the geospatial information be the centralized factor, so we can identify who's left behind at the lowest geographical level possible. So the PDP serves as an underlying data engine and provides geospatial infrastructure to a range of products that meet multiple population data needs. We have already launched a number of dashboards in the past 2 years, which I'll show you in a second. But the potential of the PDP is huge. Let's take a look at what has been done in the past years. To 2020, we consulted a wide range of stakeholders, both internal and external UFPA, and identified our common vision and user-centric requirement. We worked with our data partners, including IPLAMS and DHS, and we processed the data for over 200 population health and gender indicators at both national and subnational levels. And those indicators are also disaggregated by a range of socio-demographic characteristics that are in line with the Leave No One Behind promises of the 2030 Agenda. And we engaged Esri, who is the leading GIS solution provider, as our lead developer. And in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, and because we know that data on population risk factors can help governments prepare and respond to the pandemic and save lives. So we launched the UFPA COVID-19 Population Vulnerability Dashboard that provides decision makers, experts, and the general public with access to information on population at risk in order to target preparedness and response. In 2021, we secured a cloud hosting arrangement with the UN Global Service Center and signed the enterprise agreement with Esri. Both are critical for the development of the PDP. We also completed the front-end design, which will allow us to integrate the platform into UFPA.org seamlessly. And we launched 2 new dashboards, the Intimate Partner Violence Dashboard and the Census Tracker Dashboard this year. So now you may think, we know that there are so many platforms out there and many great platforms. So what is unique about the PDP is the geospatial dimension. We can combine population data with development indicators to map Leave No One Behind. And we can combine population data with service locations to evaluate coverage. So this is an example I'd like to show you today. And this is based on a Malawi case study. So in the first map, we map their antenatal care service locations. And then we use the GIS network analysis and service area analysis to generate the service coverage based on the travel distance along roads. That's the second map. And in this third map, we integrate service area with geospatial population data and conduct geospatial analysis for estimating population access. So by combining antenatal service location data with population distribution data, you may obtain more information on your programming, such as where and how many individuals have access to certain services. So I have talked about the population dashboard under the PDP. We have progressively launched a number of thematic dashboards. So this is the COVID-19 dashboard. It allows us to answer questions such as, what is the percentage and number of older persons aged 65 and above in Albania, Nigeria? And this is the intimate partner violence dashboard. We can answer questions like, which province in Pakistan has the highest level of IPV? And here is the census tracker dashboard. We can answer the questions such as, because of COVID-19, how many censuses are delayed without a new date? And the answers is, you can find the answers right away under dashboard. So we have talked about the past. Now let's take a look at the year 2022 and beyond. So once we have the development work completed, we will start the field testing with partner National Statistical Office, including their co-development of the national portals. And we also want to expand the current scope of the statistical and geospatial data, and of course, add new functionalities and data management features to the platform. One thing that has been a very key feature in our vision is the user-defined indicator calculation and analysis based on microdata. This has been proving very challenging, but we will target that in the year 2022. And of course, we would like to operationalize our help desk and build a network of users. And last but not least, it's very critical to link to the other UN data portals. So we integrate us as part of the UN data ecosystem and make sure that data exchange across different data portals are seamless. So I will stop here. Thank you again, and I look forward to the Q&A.
Thank you very much, Mengjia. So I think we are all looking very much forward to seeing these resources live, accessible to the public soon. And as a reminder to those attending the session, I think UNFPA is looking for feedback, for input, suggestions in kind of guiding the development of this platform in the future also. So we would clearly welcome all your feedback in that respect. Last but not least, our colleague Linda Peters from S3 will talk about some of the work they do in also supporting this population data platform vision and the dissemination of population data. Linda, over to you. This is also a pre-recorded presentation. Thank you.
Sorry, Laurent, did you want me to hit play?
No, it's Rebecca's working on it. I think there's a bit of a technical glitch, but it should come up soon. Yeah.
My apologies. Linda, is there any way you could maybe try sharing it from your side?
Yeah, let me give it a go.
Thank you.
Let me see here. Oops, hold on a minute. I think I need to do it with sound, perhaps. Let me try that share again. Okay.
Yes, we are not getting your sound, Linda, from the computer. We could see the slides, but not the sound.
No audio. Okay, let me try one more time. I didn't see a option. There it is. Okay. Here we go. Yes. On behalf of Esri, I want to say thanks to IUSSP and the UNFPA for inviting us to be a part of this session today. Briefly, I want to go over with you what we're going to talk about. I'm going to start with the importance of GIS and then share with you the work that we've been doing on the National Portals project here and the templates that we're creating. I'll then spend a few minutes talking about the Statistics Learn Hub, the work we're doing on SDMX, as well as the new World POP 1 kilometer service. So a lot to cover. I'm going to leave you at the end with some resources, some data models and videos and more as well. So let's get started. First, I want to talk about this National Portals project. So what is that? It's a project here at Esri that we began this year to support census and statistical data dissemination. At Esri, we have been building a lot of resources and tools during this 2020 round to support your work. And this project was really important to us because we've been engaged with many countries, as well as the UNFPA, World Bank, and other key agencies in this 2020 round. In working directly with the countries, we have been aiding in the work of the integration of the statistical and geospatial frameworks. And with the modernization of GIS, we realize there are issues of data dissemination that really follow some common patterns. And we know this, I mean, we've been working with the US Census, for example, since the 1980 round. And currently, many countries are beginning to look at data sharing and dissemination as the 2020 round is well underway, and many countries already have their data collected in the field. Now, as we think about data dissemination, as you all know, again, things have changed quite a bit. As we think about it today, it's no longer just tabular data. We have many different ways that we can share data today. And that could be through a dashboard, as you see here in the upper left, or in the lower right. It could be through applications. It could be simple maps. Maybe it's a thematic map. Maybe it's a dot density map, or even a heat map. So a lot of different ways that data is being shared today. And we have to think about the different types of data users who are out there and how they wish to access and use this data. And again, here's where I think we all understand this has really changed, right, from our traditional data users. It's no longer just statisticians or GIS analysts who want to get access to our data. It's people across many different industries. Academia, educators, of course, researchers, of course, the media. Media has a seemingly unending appetite for data. Citizens do as well. They want to understand what's going on in their community. Civil society, developers developing new apps, and even policymakers that need to get access to information to make decisions. And again, these different types of data users want to engage with us in different ways. Some may still want traditional tabular data. Others may want a map. A developer, for example, may want an API. So the system that we design has to have all of those things to make it easier. Now, the other thing we have to consider, what are some of the questions those data users are trying to answer? And they may be some questions around unemployment, for example. Where is the highest unemployment, or how much did that change? They may be looking at equity, perhaps in the example in the upper left, where we're looking at the percent of households with no internet access. Or it could be even in polling as well. So a lot of different issues being considered. And all of these questions went into our work and our thinking on how to design the tools and templates needed to help make your work easier. So let's take a look at what I mean by that. Again, the goal of this work is to provide readily accessible tools for the countries and agencies to use to prepare and share data. So we started with some data models, as you see on the right-hand side. These data models standardize our approach and provide really the tools that make the sharing and of the data and the collaboration easier. Again, we have to think about the user interface. We want things to be easy to understand and ensure that the data is discoverable. Now, the result of this work, as we hope that you will see it, is that you will be able to readily share your data for national, subnational, and global reporting. Now, how are you going to do this? Are you an ArcGIS desktop user? Great. Maybe you're using Enterprise, a server. Maybe you're using a cloud offering. All of those can be leveraged by your statistical office to accomplish this work. The workflow and the models and the templates that I'm talking about here all will be shared through GitHub and allowing you to easily access those to provide the consistent framework that you need. Now, all of this work is based upon hubs. As we all know, GIS hubs are really transforming our communities. They help us engage really with people, with citizens, and empower those citizens as well. The hub itself gives us the geospatial infrastructure that we need to be able to serve out those services, to share maps, to share open data, to share applications, to create those stories. And so with this national portal work, we are leveraging Hub and have created some maps and applications that you can use to configure your own data with. So again, what do I mean by that? Well, here's an example of the National Portal Statistics Hub template that we created. We've put in some generic boilerplate text, an introduction and a welcome, and then you can see on the page here the first template, which is what we call an experience builder application. We also created some other templates that let you explore data by topic or theme, or highlight certain data stories and apps, or explore data using special topic cards. So perhaps there's certain subjects that are really important to you, as we have here, for example, the demography of adaptation to climate change. All of these are configurable based upon what's important to you, based upon the story you want to bring to life with your data. We've even created some subpages here, again, highlighting that portfolio application that I talked about before, which allow you to see things by different themes. And so if we take a look at this up close, you can see as I click across the bottom of the tabs to click on the different themes, that theme is then represented in the window above. Again, this is configurable with your own data. I'm doing it here in the US because that is my data, but you can put your country's data into this application. We've also created a story maps application. This allows you to create an online atlas. As you'll see as you go through here, again, we've created some boilerplate language that you can simply replace and include your own data and put in categories here. We added in categories of population, fertility, households, and workforce. But again, customize this based upon what's important to you. Now, next, that experience builder application that I mentioned earlier. And as you can see in the themes on the left, we put in, again, what we think are some common categories. You can remove some of these, add to it yourself, again, based upon what's important to you. So again, to summarize, what did we build? We built a set of tools, procedures, and templates, as well as that data model that will help you in making it easier to standardize your census data into the Global Statistical Geospatial Framework and publish that data in an easy to use standardized format structure. And again, all of this will be available through GitHub with the source code and the documentation. Now, just to give you an example from another country, because we did work with our colleagues at UNFPA closely on this to make sure we were doing things that would represent what many countries need. We took a look at the Mozambique data and loaded that in here. So you can see that this is configurable in other places. You can come in and interact with the data, click on it, get information on that data at a lower level. Now, I want to share a couple of other resources that I think are also really important with you. We've worked over the last few years in building out what we call statistics learn lessons. And this year, we brought those together into a learning hub. So this hub is available. It has many different modules or sections, as you can see here, the 6 sections that are available that start at the very basic level and move you gradually into more complex workflows. In section 3, we specifically address GIS for census census workflows with things like how do you edit enumeration areas, or how do you configure your paper census into a CAPI digital form, or how do you do work assignments in the field. So a lot of really great content and resources here. This Learn Hub is open and freely available to anyone wishing to go in and learn on ArcGIS. Next, we are also doing some good work on SDMX, as we know how important this is to your community. So today we have stood up a prototype. This is an ArcGIS Pro add-in. It allows you to do manual publishing. We are next working to make this a project and ArcGIS Pro add-in. We're also working on a Python library that will work in ArcGIS Pro and notebooks. And the idea here is that in the future, we will have this officially supported as product across all of the ArcGIS system. And just to give you a little sneak peek of what that looks like, you can see the SDMX toolbar now being launched here within ArcGIS Pro. And what I simply need to do is point to the provider or the source, the agency, and then point to the data flow, and then begin to do my work within the ArcGIS system. One other thing to reference, and I mentioned this, I don't want to steal any thunder from the World Pop team. I'm sure that Andy and team will talk about this, but we are really excited about the new World Pop 1 kilometer service going live in the ArcGIS Living Atlas. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of talk about that during the session. So with that, I want to leave you with a set of resources. As I mentioned, we have many different links for you here. We maintain a page within Esri for all things statistics. That Learn Hub I mentioned as well. Many resources around Census 2020, the GitHub site I mentioned, and of course that data model. And then a lot of other stuff can be found on our Esri community statistics page, including a lot of videos of webinars and how-tos. So check all of that out. And with that, I thank you again to IUSSP and UNFPA for the time here today. And if you have any more questions, you can reach me there at my email address. Thank you again. Have a good day.
Thank you very much, Linda. We are sure, I think UNFPA, the population data platform that was talked about, will also benefit from having the national statistical offices enabled to share more of that population data online through these portal tools that are being generated, and making that easily interoperable with a global platform, and enabling that data sharing using standard-based approaches. I think that's key in working in collaboration. So with that, I think we come to an end of the presentations. Thanks again to all presenters. As we agreed in the beginning, you are now free to turn on your camera if you wish. All the attendees as well. The microphones are open also, so you can ask your questions live, or if you prefer, you can type in your questions in the chat. We will try to answer them all. Please use the raise hand functionality on the reactions on the bottom of your Zoom screens if you want to ask a question live. But before we go to that discussion, we would like to ask our discussant today, John Wilmot from the Population Division at DESA, to maybe summarize and share some thoughts on what he has heard. John, you are alone. Alex Calda somehow could not join. I think he has maybe connectivity problems in Nairobi. I could not reach him on WhatsApp either. So it's all on you now. And please share maybe in a few minutes your thoughts before we then open the floor for the broader discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurent, and thank you to all the presenters. Can you hear me well? Is everything fine?
Yes, all good.
The connection? Okay, very good. Thank you. Well, this has been a very interesting session on the ongoing development of data resources for use in demographic research. So we're all excited about that. As you know, the Population Division produces population estimates and projections for around 230 distinct countries or areas, which together comprise the total population of the world. And we also face the challenge of how best to disseminate the data that we produce and the data that we use to produce our own estimates. The data sets produced by the population division include trends in estimated and projected population size from 1950 until 2100, as well as trends in the three components of population change: fertility, mortality, and international migration. And such information is presented separately by sex and for 5-year age groups. And in the upcoming 2022 edition of the World Population Prospects, we will present data by 1 year in 1-year age groups. So this just multiply 1-year age groups and 1-year time periods as well. So we're multiplying by 25 the quantity of data that we will be producing and that we will need to manage and to disseminate. And we also produce comprehensive global data sets on family planning, on population policies, and urbanization. And to share this information more effectively with the world, we also have been developing a dedicated data portal, which reflects our commitment to the increased availability and transparency of the data sets produced by the population division. And currently, the indicators available through the new data portal are just family planning indicators and some selected indicators from the 2019 edition of World Population Prospects, some age-specific fertility rates, total fertility, and population age structure. But as we launch the new edition of World Population Prospects next year, our commitment is to provide nearly all of the indicators that are estimated as part of the World Population Prospects. So the population division's data portal also includes underlying data from various sources, such as censuses, surveys, vital registration, and so forth. These are the data that have been used to produce the estimates and estimates of population and demographic indicators. So the new data portal will it provides an API access, custom searches based on indicators and country selections, comparisons selecting multiple regions, countries, and areas, and various data visualization possibilities, and also the possibility of downloading data in a variety of formats. A general comment on all of these data platforms is that it's very important to provide complete information on where the data come from, and also on the definitions of the indicators and on the methods used for estimates. It's great to have access to so much information, but we must also be sure that we're providing all the necessary information to understand the underlying data for those who want to dig in deeper, who need to understand more. Another general point about the various data dissemination platforms is that they focus on the analysis of aggregated data, including maybe subnational units of analysis, and also on interactive online creation of maps and visualization of geographic variation in particular. But one question is whether such platforms also enable access to an analysis of data by characteristics other than those that are included in the menu of options on a particular platform. So, these platforms are very useful for providing access. They're very useful for providing access to key summary indicators, including time series of those indicators, but they're not a substitute for platforms designed for the dissemination of micro data sets or for providing access to online tabulators or richer data cubes or online data enclaves. Perhaps I'm wrong in that. If I'm wrong, please correct me, but I'm trying to offer some points that there are some other things that we need to be aware of and other types of data platforms as well that can be very useful. Demographers are big fans of data, let's face it. In general, it's better to have more data on a topic rather than fewer data. But large data sets can also be overwhelming. And the tools provided to help manage these data are very much appreciated. We also need to recall the importance of models of demographic patterns and trends, which offer a theoretical basis for understanding the data that we observe. Nathan Kiefitz made this point in a 1975 article on how do we know the facts of demography. It's a provocative article. It's worth reviewing if you haven't read it ever or if you haven't read it recently. The article illustrates the importance of data interpretation guided by the use of explanatory models. Sometimes those models are quite simple, but sometimes simple models can lend understanding, even if they cannot explain all the features observed in the data. The heading of one section in Kiefitz's 1975 article is "No Model, No Understanding." And I think that this is an important lesson to keep in mind and to impart on the next generation of demographers, even as we appreciate the enormous value of these new data resources. So lastly, I would like to emphasize the importance of ongoing efforts to harmonize substantive vocabularies and coding schemes for international data dissemination and exchange. This concerns both aggregate level statistics, for example, through SDMX, and individual data records, for example, the work that's been done by the DHS project and IPMS International. These initiatives have been critical to facilitate international comparative research and to help make data more interoperable internationally and across substantive domains. New and future data platforms will greatly benefit from such efforts and investments in data infrastructure and international standards. So those are just a few reflections on the presentations from today. I thank the authors for some very interesting presentations, and I look forward to the rest of the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Some very good points and food for thought in a way. And I would actually invite maybe any one of the speakers who may wish to address or respond to some of the points that John mentioned, especially that need to allow also the user to kind of drive that analysis or the visualization of some of the indicators. I think Meng Jia from UNFPA touched a bit on that, but if there's any reply or answer, feel free to step in. And then the floor is open for anyone in the audience to ask questions, to provide some feedback, some thoughts, some comments. So feel free again to type those in or raise your hand and unmute your microphone. So any answer or any response maybe from the colleagues who presented today to the reflections we heard from John first.
I see Linda has her hand up.
Linda, please.
Yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, it's interesting that you talk about the large data can be overwhelming. I mean, I think that's part of the benefit of using a GIS system to do that visualization and analytic within those large data sets. Rolando touched on that as well with the CPLStat platform, right? We need to have these tools. They need to be well documented. We need to have metadata, right? And the methods as well. So totally, 100% agreed with the points that you made there. I guess what I just underscore is that the technology has really, gone forward tremendously, allowing us to process these large data sets now in ways that we couldn't do. And that's evident with the stuff that David and team at WorldPop are doing, right? I mean, that's just a tremendous data set with over 20 years of data points that we can now process in minutes. Thanks.
Thank you, Lee. I do not see any hands up. I mean, we do still have 8 minutes from this session. We will plan to finish on time because I know there are other sessions. Rolando, I see your physical hand up.
Yes,
please.
yes, because I didn't find
Yeah.
I didn't find the hand, the electronic hand. So the things that and talking about what John mentioned and Linda. So one of the efforts that we are trying to do here in ECLAC and is try to link this collaboration in between the statistical and of course population statistical agencies that includes all the census in their activities and the geographical agencies in the region. If they are together, if they work together in this regard, so that it is going to be easier to identify, to visualize all the information, the rich information that comes, and in particular for some the projections through the small area estimations and some other process. So it is important in taking account all the guidelines that the Statistical Commission and the geospatial side of the UN, the UNGGIM are working on and has produced in this regard. So to align this information to visualize better these specific issues, it is an important issue. And of course, try to incorporate all these open sources and open data that all the countries are producing in this regard. So I think it is an important aspect that we have taken account. Thank you.
Thank you, Rolando. Any other questions from perhaps from the audience? I do not see any hands up right now, but also feel free if you don't find that hand to open up the microphone. Yes, Mengjia, please.
Yeah, thank you so much for this excellent panel. Just to react to John's remark, I fully agree with you, John. I think it's very, very important to document the metadata for all this tremendous amount of indicator data. And there is also very important to make sure those data are in standard format that can facilitate easy exchange. Like, for example, many of their presenters touch base on the SDMX, and we are also trying to use that standard for our data exchange. And they're very happy to see their new initiative from their colleague from the University of Michigan. I think it's also part of their SDMX universe as well. So I think those are all great points and very good movement forward.
Thank you, Mengjia. John, please.
I have a question for George. Do you think we need to change the use of the terms fertility and fecundity in English demography? Do we need to reverse them to be in alignment with the medical doctors and other languages?
So actually, I don't. And what's interesting to see is that the vocabularies that I was talking about actually are inconsistent internally, because when they define the term fertility, they define it as a capacity, which demographers call fecundity. But then if you go down further, they also have the concept of a fertility rate, which they take from demography. Now, you can't have, as far as I can tell, you can't have a rate attached to a capacity, a potential. So what's happened is that not only have they sort of gone in an opposite direction, but we've already influenced them in a way that's made their own vocabularies inconsistent. So I think we need another solution. And the other solution in this space is that terms in vocabularies can have a context. And so you can say that fertility means one thing when you're talking about human fertility, and it means another thing when you're talking about soil fertility, and so on. And the technology for actually doing that in these vocabularies is already there. We just need to get to the people who maintain them and have them put in these clarifications. So I don't know, John. I mean, do you think we could turn around English-speaking demographers to this? By the way, I didn't mention it, but this contradiction is English is out of step with French and Spanish and other languages in this too.
Yes. That's why I think in many ways the English-speaking demographers just got it wrong, because it's opposite from how it is in the Romance languages, and it's opposite for how the medical doctors talk about fertility as a capacity. So I've thought for years actually that the English-speaking demographers needed to change their vocabulary, but that would be radical.
Mm-hmm.
We tried with metric, it didn't work, John.
Okay.
It is never too late. As I was mentioning to you, I've been 25 years in the UN system, and I'm happy to see finally a data strategy coming from the Secretary General's office. But, well, anyway, let's just say it's never too late. I don't see any other questions, although we still have a few minutes. Please, I have seen Linda post some of the resources that she had on her last slides. Of course, the slides will be available, the videos will be available for the registered participants, but if you want, you can have access to those links that Linda has pasted in. I do see a question now coming in. Thank you very much, Diego, for that. Or is it a comment? Let me see. Yeah, no, there's a question there. So I just quickly invite the presenters, if anyone would like to answer or address those points from Diego in the chat, then we can have that as our last intervention, just to stay on time. Anyone would like to pick up on those questions?
Maybe I can start.
Please. Yeah.
Sure. So yeah, thank you so much for the question. So first, I want to say that I don't think there will be a lot of variations between the official national statistics and the data compiled by international organizations, because we rely on national data. So most of the time, those data are just captured in their international, global database as it is. And there will be some differences between the national data and their model-based estimates generated by some of the international agencies. But just like John said, I think it's just very important to document all the metadata so we understand why there is such difference and how should we interpret them. I'll stop here and over to my colleagues.
Thank you. Any other comment on this point? I think it's a very important one, because we've been always trying to make sure that
I would just say, I mean, it's so important today. This is why open data and federation of data is so important, right? So we don't have these issues of numbers look different, right? The national agency should be publishing those numbers, and those numbers are what we all can pick up and use.
Exactly, and I think maybe those are some good words to then close the session with. I don't see any other questions, and we did come to an end. Yes, yes, John, please.
I would just like to say quickly to Diego, if you have some good examples that you'd like to share with me, we could do that offline. I think this is an issue that we've been trying to grapple with. So if you've got some good examples, Diego, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, and that's something I wanted to encourage also the participants to follow up, to feel free to reach out to the presenters. You have the contact information, I think, on the slides, and definitely reach out also to UNFPA as the convener of this session with any suggestions based on what you've heard today. Again, the recordings, presentations will be available. So I would like to thank again the presenters for joining us today for the very interesting insights and what they shared. Thank you, John, for joining as a discussant and also providing your reflections, but also some summary of the work you do at your department and in your division. And thanks for those who took time in this busy and I'm sure very interesting conference to attend this specific session. Hopefully it was informative and useful to you. Thank you all, and wishing you a good rest of the day and other interesting live and online sessions during the conference. Thanks again, and all the best.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.